All right, what's up, everybody? We'll get started here in just a minute. We're outside the beautiful 432 Park Avenue tonight. All right, I see Alan, MD. What's up, everybody? See Keith Richards, Andrew O'Donovan, Rick C. What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. It's actually not bad weather out in New York tonight. It's been raining for the past 2 days, but seems as if the weather's improving at least a little bit. Hopefully we'll have a nice weekend. And we're going to start off tonight's stream on Park Avenue. This is East 56th Street and Park. You have this beautiful view here, 425 Park Avenue. Clouds look a bit ominous, but it is a nice night out nonetheless. NAV407, what's going on? Emma, the joyful one, cheers. Andy B is joining us. Shane. Sergio, welcome. Brandon. We'll just do the quick audio and visual check here if you guys can hear us. Also, if we're streaming in 1080p, just give us a thumbs up in the chat. We'll get started here in a minute. And thanks so much for joining. This is the Aston Martin showroom right here on Billionaires Row. Pretty cool. See Eddie, Crypto Meme, what's going on, everybody? Looks like the audio and the visual is good. So we can go ahead and get started. It's a beautiful night. Okay, well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back. 2 Walks on Wall Street. Today is May 15th or May 14th. I don't even know. Anyway, it's Thursday. It's a beautiful Thursday night here. We're reporting live from New York City's Billionaires Row, 57th Street, in between Park Avenue and Madison Avenue, looking at the Four Seasons Hotel that is now open again on Billionaires Row. Pretty wild day in the markets. We had some interesting news coming out of United Healthcare. Now, I don't really have any skin in the game there, but I was asked 2 nights ago, I think, because we didn't have a stream last night. There was a lot of people talking about United Healthcare and if it was a potential buying opportunity. And I had mentioned just quickly right off the bat how, the way it was trading over the past 2 weeks was very reminiscent to this stock that I was involved with. This was, 2019-ish, called Luckin Coffee. And I posted a little bit of a synopsis on my X feed today, because usually the stock will move in a major way before any news. Now, look, I don't know the story with United Healthcare. Allegedly, or apparently, there's some sort of criminal investigation by the Department of Justice. I don't even know if that's true or not. I was briefly looking into it today, but I had mentioned 2 nights ago on the live stream that the stock is trading like there's some sort of criminal activity or fraud going on, right? It's very, very rare to see a stock trade like that and essentially pretty much go no bid for 2 days, right? Now, I mean, I'm kind of saying that lightly. When I mean the stock is going no bid, it's just essentially going down in a straight line. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have any skin in the game. I don't own it. I don't cover the stock. But it's interesting because when I saw the headline yesterday come out, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like so reminiscent of when Luckin Coffee in April, I believe, of 2019 came out and disclosed about $310 million worth of fraudulent revenue the year prior. Now, by that time, the stock was already down 50% from its highs, and then subsequently, about a few days later, it was delisted. Now, Luckin Coffee is an actual company. However, they were just delisted from the U.S. exchanges due to that fraud, right? It was about $310 million worth of falsified revenue, I believe. And a major tell with that, right, because they were reporting just really, really amazing earnings, really fantastic earnings. And I was actually in the stock for a little bit. But then it started to crack the 50-day, and then it went to the 200-day, and it went there not, in the normal time frame of maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It went there in like 2 days, which is very similar to what happened with the price action of United Healthcare. So when I looked at the stock a few days ago, I don't even watch United Healthcare, I said, oh my God, this thing is trading like there's some major, bombshell about to be released. Or some sort of fraud that somebody knows about. So this, as we always talk about, this is a really good lesson that, stocks are always leading indicators in and of themselves, right? Now, I'm not saying that there is actually any wrongdoing at United Healthcare, because I'm not familiar with it. I don't cover the sector, and I don't really cover the stock, and quite frankly, I don't really know anything about Medicaid. Or how they bill their customers. It's really not my wheelhouse. I'm basically going off of the stock in and of itself. But it was kind of strange timing, right? It was almost a little bit eerie that I got a lot of those questions on the live stream 2 days ago. Many people were asking, I think it's a really good buy here. And I'm like, I wouldn't touch this thing. This thing looks like, you're probably going to get some headline over the weekend or something like that saying there's some sort of criminal probe or fraudulent activity. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But we'll see. I mean, I don't cover the stock. I don't know what's really going on with it, but again, to reiterate, if you have a stock acting that erratically, you probably should have already been out of it, right? Stocks just don't go to the 200-day moving average in 2 days, right? Maybe it gets there in a month or something, but it just doesn't go like that overnight. So that means there's some major insiders or institutions that were dumping that thing because they kind of just wanted to get out of it. Anyway, kind of more important, we're going to talk about Walmart tonight. As you all know, they did report earnings today. A few things to unpack there. I thought overall earnings were solid, and obviously Walmart kicks off kind of the slew of major retailers, right, that are going to be reporting next week. We're going to have Home Depot coming up. We're also going to have Lowe's, and I believe Target, ticker symbol TGT, will be reporting next week as well. So that should give us an interesting look on the overall outlook of consumers and also a little bit of an insight into management team's outlook on if they're going to raise any prices due to the tariffs or any major impacts there. I was listening to the call briefly, and they did say that you could expect modest price increases coming from Walmart. This is according to them. Late June and early July, assuming things kind of hold like they do. Now, furthermore, we're going to be covering some news, which I think is the biggest news of the week. Galaxy Digital CEO and founder Mike Novogratz will be listing on NASDAQ tomorrow, which is huge news. It's really unbelievable news. I think this kind of signifies a major change in terms of the overall regulatory environment. And I'd really say the stance or the attitude of the U.S. regulatory system towards digital assets, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies. So I'll be watching that tomorrow morning. I think the Galaxy Digital team is going to be doing some sort of live stream, I think. It's going to be a pretty amazing thing to see and an amazing thing to witness. Now, Galaxy Digital is already traded in Canada on the Toronto Stock Exchange, but it's going to be really unbelievable to see that company being traded right here in the United States on the NASDAQ. So awesome stuff, and congratulations to Mike Novogratz and the Galaxy Digital team. Speaking of cryptocurrencies, we've been having steady action in Bitcoin, trading over $100,000 for I think 3 weeks straight now. At the time of recording this live stream, we have about $104,000 Bitcoin, and I think it's going to go much higher. We're seeing a lot of tight action. This could probably turn into like a 2 weeks tight. Maybe if we hold steady throughout next week and hold within that range of 102, 104,000, and then break out in the new all-time record highs, that would probably be our first closing high over 106, maybe 108,000, which would be really great. Interesting action in the bond market we've been talking about as we pass the University Club here. I think I actually may cross the street just so you could see the facade of the building a little bit better. But, we got these two inflation prints, which I thought were rather good. But I think the bond market is kind of sniffing out a potential for another round of maybe higher inflation coming down the pike. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but you see those bond yields elevated. And I think that's one of the reasons why you have Bitcoin performing so well and you have gold performing so well. The market's kind of, skittish. Even though the equity market's performing great, S&P 500, I think up 0.5% today. We actually were trading negative at one point, but closed towards the high of the day. I think should you continue to see bond yields hover where they're at, particularly that 10-year, I think that's very, very positive sign for Bitcoin and gold, because it kind of signals a little bit more of uncertainty in the market, which usually that would reflect negatively on equities. But in this kind of crazy market that we have, which is, news driven and having the masses freak out about the tariffs, it's kind of driving a lockout rally for the S&P 500. I mean, this is a very, very reminiscent rally of the COVID rally we had, right? When the NASDAQ 100 followed the 21-day moving average all the way up to new all-time record highs. And it's looking like that's probably what's going to happen here. This is a quintessential lockout rally. You have a lot of people very, very underexposed to the market, and they're trying to get exposed to the market now that all major moving averages are above their 200-day moving average. Or I should say, all major equity indices are above their 200-day moving average. All right, let's go ahead and get the stream started. Standing across the street from the beautiful University Club, this is West 54th Street and 5th Avenue. Let's see who we have in. Let's see who we have in the chat. Let me just clip my microphone on my shoulder here for a second. Or maybe it'll fit right there. All right, I see Mike G, what's going on? I see TPAC 5000, Scott Solomon, good to see you. DC322, Matthew, welcome. Dale, Edwin, MD, what's going on? Bear in the Garden is here. Sandra, thanks for joining us. Lena Sandoval, Robert from Westchester, cheers. Ted, welcome. Andrew Donovan, Ben York, Jackson, Julio, MD. Good to see everybody. All right, let's get started. Yeah, DC322, let me read your comment here. Steph UF, welcome. It says ports from both coasts are empty, no new shipments. Yeah, I don't even really look at any of that stuff. I think that's all kind of, and we'll kind of get into that. But the new, and this is in relation to equity markets, right? As we've had massive V-bottom recoveries in all three indices, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Dow. Markets will not bottom on good news, right? And certainty. Markets do not bottom on good news and certainty. When you have the news positive and when everything is certain about the tariffs, the move is already missed and your opportunity to generate alpha goes to zero, right? And this is the same in every single cycle. So I wrote a little bit of a blurb like 2 weeks ago, quite literally at the dead lows of the market, saying what's probably going to happen here is we are going to get a significant low. This market is going to rally in the face of worsening news, right, and uncertainty. And I even posted something about this today, as I, read through the papers and things like that, on the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times and such. You have every other article, right, and maybe rightfully so. I'm not trying to downplay this, right, but this is the point I'm trying to make, so stick with me. Every other article is negative. And it may be justified negativity, I don't know. But every other article is negative, either about consumer sentiment, they're interviewing a bunch of millennials, they're saying, oh, my outlook on life is terrible, I'm never gonna be able to buy a house, I'm never gonna be able to have kids or go on my vacation, I'm not gonna propose to my fiance or, get married, it's on and on and on. And again, it may be justified negativity. The point I'm trying to make is you had the market follow through and bottom and all the leading stocks break out 2 weeks ago, and we continue to rally. And if you open up any newspaper, if you turn on the TV, there is still so much fear and uncertainty out there, right? DC322 mentioned, there's no shipping containers at the ports. There's going to be no food on the shelves. It's like there's going to be barren everything, right? And CNN 2 weeks ago had that guy, the most famous guy at the New York Stock Exchange, that broker there, the Einstein of Wall Street. They had him on primetime CNN, and the host of CNN, I don't know who it is, I don't even know her name, but she had a whiteboard. She had a whiteboard out talking to this guy, and he's like, everyone I talk to is saying that, in 2 weeks, there's going to be no food at Walmart, there's going to be no goods, and the goods that are on the shelves are going to go up 100%, doom and gloom. And like the CNN lady is drawing on her whiteboard like a picture of a cargo ship. It's like the most ridiculous thing. And I retweeted this, and I'm like, this is like the sign of a bottom in the market, right? Markets bottom on worsening news with a divergence in price action. And then you usually have a rollover or a massive drawdown in the VIX, which we've had. And then once things start to get certain, right? And in this case, right, every bull market or every bear market has its narrative. This crash, the narrative was obviously tariffs. Once you start to get some certainty around the tariffs, the move is already made and valuations are already baked in. Now the market will still probably go significantly higher, but you've missed the lion's share or the power of the move, right? And you're probably very, very underinvested. And this happens in every cycle, right? So the moment, what I think is going to happen, throughout the summer, you're going to have a slight uptick in positive news. And you're already kind of starting to see it, but a little bit premature because the vast majority of the media is kind of downplaying it and arguing about it and bickering about it. All the trade deals, all of these conferences that the Trump administration goes to, once you start to see trade deals getting signed, you'll start to have the certainty increase a little bit. But it'll always be fought over and bickered, and then you'll have, pundit number one on CNN saying that, Trump caved, he got played, and the focus of the masses will be not on the market. You'll be totally distracted away from taking advantage of any opportunity in the market. Your energy, right, by the media will be focused in on, who's right or wrong, who caved what, who's an idiot, and then you'll miss all the opportunity, right? And it's already happening right now. So it's so important to follow price. And don't worry about arguing about who caved this, who caved that. It's irrelevant to your life. Okay, that's not going to move your P&L. It's not going to impact your life at all. What will impact your life is getting invested in great companies that are maintaining guidance, increasing forward guidance, and increasing earnings, right? So it's very, very important to don't allow the news to kind of scare you out of the market at the lows, because this is how market cycles work, right? It'll be so unbelievably crazy at the lows. And you could go and do a post-analysis in any cycle, right? The most recent one, well, I would say the most drastic recent one being in 2020, right? The pandemic, the market followed through. We had 2 follow-through days at the lows. Stocks rebounded rather well. And every single day on the Wall Street Journal, in the New York Times, the Washington Post, you had death toll counters. How many people were dying today of the coronavirus? How many more shutdowns? This virologist on, a bit talking about this variant, that variant. How many shots do you need? Are you triple vaxxed? Are you quadruple vaxxed? It's a different narrative, right? 2022 bear market, which was probably one of the worst bear markets I've ever invested through in my entire life. The narrative was all about how, the Biden administration is eroding global trust in the U.S. Nobody's going to want to invest in the United States anymore because they don't trust President Biden and VP Harris, because they're too incompetent. We're a laughing stock on the global stage. Then we get those follow-through days. Nobody believes it. They think it's a bear market rally. They think we're going to retest the lows, and then they miss out on all the gains. So not only is it important to, at specific points in a market cycle, you really got to resist the news, and you also have to put your political biases away. You really, really have to. There was a lot of people on the right who missed out on that growth bull market in 2023 just because we had a Democratic president. And there's a lot of people on the left that are now underinvested in this market because we have a president that is on the right side of the aisle, right, a Republican. So from a market standpoint, right, it's so critical to keep your mental capital. Don't take the rage bait from the media, right? There's going to be a ton of rage bait all summer, okay? There's going to be more rage bait to go around than you're going to know what to do with. Should we take the jet? Is the jet a bad idea? Are we getting bribed? Is Trump caving? Is President Xi outsmarting Trump? You're going to inundate yourself with this, but you have to ask yourself a question. Is me consuming this going to make my life any better? Is me arguing with my coworker about, did Trump cave on the tariffs? Is that going to progress my life? Is that going to make my life any better, right? So it's being hyper critical of your time and focusing on the opportunity as opposed to, focusing on the news on what may happen, right? Hey, Carl Roth, what's up? Good to see you from Canada. Cheers to you. My friend D is in the house. Good to see you. Mike O'Brien is here. Welcome, Mike. Paul says, after seeing the stock market surviving the pandemic when the whole world economy was pretty much shut down, I gained confidence and started believing in investing in stocks for the long term. Now, again, and I just want to make this point because a lot of the negativity may be justified, right? So I'm not trying to downplay or deny the negativity because the negativity may be, people may have every right to be negative, right? That's totally okay. But when you see the market reacting and turning and you get that follow through day and you have those leading stocks breaking out, right? There was a basket of 6 stocks, 6 TMLs, that when this market was off 25%, and people have short-term memory. This bear market that we experienced for 2 weeks, it was short in terms of duration. Okay, the duration risk. When I mean duration, I mean time. It was very short, right? Boom, 2 weeks, but holy shit! In that 2 weeks, did things really get, wheeling to the downside? The indices were off 25% across the board. And if you understand beta, that means some stocks were down, 50+%. It was crazy. So the negativity is justified. What I'm saying is you've got to fight it. Because when those stocks follow through and they break out, and especially those stocks trading near new highs, you got to ask yourself what that means. Okay, let's contextualize that for a second, right? If you have the S&P off 25, okay, off 25%, but you had Netflix trading at a 52-week high, objectively, what is that telling you, right? Well, that's telling you that institutions and money managers on Wall Street were not selling that company, but they chose to sell others. And I always like to give this analogy of, you're holding a beach ball underwater, like if you were ever, playing in the swimming pool in the backyard, and you take that beach ball and you hold it underwater. Once you let that beach ball go, that beach ball is going to fly out of the pool and go skyward, 10,000 feet in the air, right? You can think about those leading stocks like the Netflix, like the Spotifys, like the Ubers, like the Palantirs, the ones that are leading the market right now, as those beach balls underwater. And the water is the market. So when you have a market that is in turmoil, right? And an individual stock that's not getting sold and is trading at the high, once that pressure gets released, once that market starts to follow through, those stocks are going to go like crazy. And that's kind of really what happens. So I always like to put an emphasis, and it's very apparent during a bear market what the leaders are going to be, because they stick out like sore thumbs. So ignore the stocks or the companies that have gotten blasted, off 80%, off 70% during the correction, because again, ask yourself what that means. That means a portfolio manager at Fidelity, portfolio manager at BlackRock, hedge fund XYZ, right? Ron Barron at Barron Funds. These, ladies and gentlemen are sitting at the desk, at the trading desk, and saying, I'm going to hose this idea, I'm going to axe this idea, but I'm going to keep this idea. And at these institutions, you have some of the smartest people in the world, some of the best analysts in the world working at these companies. So if they choose to not sell, let's say stock XYZ in a terrible market, but they choose to sell the other one, there's a reason for that. So focus more so than ever on the price action and the earnings on those leading stocks more than ever. All right, kind of getting off topic here, but this building is one of my favorite new developments in New York City. It's 525th. Look at how cool that looks. Now, the facade is very reminiscent, architecturally speaking, to 130 William in Lower Manhattan. But that thing is incredible. I really like those windows there. All right, let me catch up on some of the chats. Hey, 10 Red Buff, what's going on? Hey, Top Cat, what's going on? Kathleen, welcome. Kathleen, I know that you're in healthcare. I'd love to know your take on. I'd love to know your take on the United Healthcare thing, because, again, healthcare is not really my wheelhouse, but 2 days ago on the live stream, there's a lot of people that were talking about United Healthcare, just because the movement in the stock was so egregious. And a lot of people were saying, is this going to be a buying opportunity? Should we buy United Healthcare? And I had said, look, for the people who are just joining, I said, look, the price action there, when a stock goes no bid like that and slices through the 50-day and slices through the 200-day in 2 weeks, or a week, I don't even know what it was with United Healthcare, like a week, that's not normal price action. That is, somebody knows something, and it is very, very reminiscent of the Luckin Coffee situation that happened in 2019, when the stock was down exactly like United Healthcare, 50% in 2 weeks. Then Luckin Coffee's management comes out and discloses that they cooked the books to the tune of, I think, $310 million for the previous fiscal year. 2 weeks later, the stock gets delisted, right? So I don't know if United Healthcare is going to get delisted. Probably not. I don't even know if there's actual fraud going on at the company. I think the news that came out, which is kind of crazy that it came out literally the day after I said it might, I think the DOJ is just investigating possible fraud as it relates to their, the Medicare Advantage program? I mean, hopefully for the sake of everybody, right? Because United Healthcare is a massive company and it's probably going to affect a lot of people. Hopefully there's no fraud, right? Because even if the fraud is manageable, markets are all about trust and companies are all about trust. And if you erode that trust, things can get ugly pretty quick. Hey, Ivan is here. What's going on? Mike, New York. Peter says your prediction about United Healthcare may prove to be correct given the Justice Department investigation. Yeah, I mean, again, I have no skin in the game here, but just because the DOJ is investigating you doesn't mean that you're guilty of it, right? Now, they may be. Again, I have no idea. I don't cover the stock or anything, but I'm solely going based upon the price action. And, if you've been doing this for over a decade, like I've been doing, you kind of develop pattern recognition here. And if you have that much selling, that's not like, your average retail trader, selling $1 million worth of stock. That is people just saying, fill or kill it, blow the fucking thing out, sitting at the trading desk, and you're getting filled at crazy prices. It's essentially just get me out, is essentially what that is. Now, maybe the stock recovers, maybe it bounces back. I have no idea. If it turns out that it's all, nonsense and there was no fraud, I'm sure the stock will bounce back. The point I'm trying to make is that for the question of is this a buying opportunity or not, my answer is why would you want to get involved in it, right? There's so many other great companies who are not being investigated by the Department of Justice that are trading at 52-week highs and into new highs that you can get involved with. Why would you want to risk it, buying something off 50% when there's potential fraud there? I don't know. That's just kind of the way I think about it. You have to think about the potential return that you could make, right? But you also have to think about your risk-adjusted return. Now, from a technical standpoint alone, I was actually looking at United Healthcare right at the close. It did close like right at the high of the day on massive heavy volume, which is usually a sign of capitulation, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not really going to get involved in it. Hey, what's up, JC? Good to see you. Peter says, Tom, you need probable cause to really start an investigation. So there is smoke somewhere to get them on the prowl. Matthew says, I think the old CEO has to come back to work there, but I'm not sure. Matthew says, Tom, come to Toronto, let's grab a drink. I may be in Canada this summer. I mean, I may take you up on that, to be honest. Steph UF says, I called my ADT support yesterday. My issue was handled by AI. She sounded 98.9% human and I was stunned. Holy crap. Well, a lot of those, pretty much companies across the board are investing heavily into AI. Speaking of AI, did you hear the breaking news with Mark Zuckerberg tonight in Meta? Apparently, I just briefly glanced over the article because I had to do the stream. Apparently, they are delaying their flagship AI rollout. Anybody hear that? I think the article literally just dropped. I think I took some notes on it briefly, but I don't know the whole story. I didn't have time to read the article, but I'm not too sure what's going on there. But this comes after Meta on the earnings call kind of reiterated that they're going to spend about $72 billion on AI. Think about that for a second. $72 billion on AI. It's pretty insane. I think their flagship AI is called Behemoth. And it is being delayed because it is not up to par. So maybe there's going to be a shakeup in the engineering department over there at Meta. JK says you need reasonable suspicion to start an investigation. I wonder what they have on him. Dean Jackson says, why risk it? Because the return is so massive if the United Healthcare stock rebounds, and one likes high risk that garner high gains when the stock does rebound. Yeah, but on a risk-adjusted basis, it's just ridiculous. It's like, why get involved, right? It's kind of like what we were just talking about. Now, you may be right. Maybe the United Healthcare does, recover, but kind of like what I said, 2 streams ago before this whole fraud thing dropped, I'm like, you should have already been out of that, right? If you're a portfolio manager right? If you're managing risk, you should have been out of that stock weeks ago, because that thing sliced the 50, it sliced the 200 on such aggressive volume, and then proceeded to go down another 20%. And I think it was down, what, 15% today? I think intraday it was down 20. So it's like, why do you want to get involved in that? And the market was telling you blaringly that something was wrong. Again, if you want to take a look at the example I posted, if you go to my X page, if you follow us on X, @WalksWallStreet, I kind of laid out the point that this looks exactly like the Luckin Coffee, or I should say the stock looks exactly like the price action Luckin Coffee. So when you do this, for a decade, and you're looking at 100 charts a day, and you've been through so many cycles, you start to develop this pattern recognition, right? Now, maybe you're right. Maybe, this is a big nothing burger, and, the stock will go right back up. But what's also possible is that this unravels into an Enron. I mean, how many people thought Enron was going to be Enron? Now, I don't want to make any predictions on what I think this is going to turn into. I do have my opinion on what I think it's going to turn into, but I think the importance of United Healthcare and just how many people rely on that company for literally their healthcare, I think is too important for me to make a comment on it. That's what I'll say. And I have no exposure to it. I don't own it. Nothing. Hey, what's up, Miguel? Says some people see a 20% correction as opportunity. Well, you have to contextualize it, right? And not to make the entire stream about United Healthcare, but when a stock drops 20% on a poor earnings report, okay, maybe that's an opportunity. Maybe you're like, the quarter wasn't so bad, but they did give good forward guidance. I think the market's overreacting. But when you have, the stock down 50% before the fraud news, that is more important to me than the stock being down 20% after the fraud news comes out. And I'll kind of explain why. When you have that egregious selling, and again, not to sound like I'm repeating myself, but over the last 2 weeks, that stock has been literally going no bid. It's just been down in a straight line. That's not retail people selling that, right? That is big insiders, not necessarily insiders of the company, but big behemoth funds just liquidating. They're like fill or kill. They're sitting at the trading desk and they're just like, move it. I don't give a shit what you fill it at, just fucking move it. That's that kind of selling. And when it's institutional selling before any fraud news, well, that means somebody probably knows something. And this could unravel into a really, really big deal. Now, again, I'm not saying it will. But again, my kind of offhand prediction from 2 streams ago, that just based on the price action, it looks like there's some sort of fraud at the company. If there is fraud at the company, it doesn't even mean the stock is going to be delisted. That just means they may pay like a ridiculous fine. The stock will get beaten down a little bit more, and then there'll be new management, new changes, they'll pay a bunch of fines, and then, it'll be fine again, right? But again, to your point, having like the S&P 500 be down 20% and then having an individual stock be down 20%, it's different. It's different in terms of opportunity. I just think the risk-adjusted return here is a little bit too risky for me to get involved. But hey, look, I know that there's a lot of people who are buying this thing today because I've gotten a lot of emails, and I hope you make money on it. I really do. I'm just, I'm just gonna sit this one out. Now, we also have another kind of crazy thing that happened today. Did anybody hear about the Coinbase news? The CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, actually came out on X and posted a video. Apparently there's some big hacker group that compromised massive amounts of data through social engineering, which is really, really scary. And they demanded a huge lump sum of ransom. I forget how much ransom it was. May have been, what was it, 20 million? How much was the ransom? Anybody know? I don't want to continue unless I know the amount. I don't want to give a fake news. I think it's 20 million bucks, right? Anyway, maybe it doesn't matter. But in the context of Coinbase, they are obviously a cryptocurrency exchange, and a lot of people, use them to buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other kind of digital assets. And one of the things that I've always said about that, and this is coming from, I guess what you would call a Bitcoin maximalist is what I would call myself. If you're gonna go in the market on one of those exchanges and buy Bitcoin, right? I wouldn't leave it on the exchange, because the whole founding principle of Bitcoin, right, is to be, in my view, it's the only unconfiscatable money there is, because you have custody of your own private keys. However, if you buy Bitcoin on Coinbase and you leave it there, well, you're trusting Coinbase, you're trusting Brian Armstrong and all of his employees, to custody your Bitcoin, right, on the exchange. They hold your private keys. And there's an old saying in the kind of Bitcoin community, not your keys, not your coins. I'm sure everybody's kind of heard that. So I would be very reluctant to hold really anything on the exchanges. That's just me. And I understand there's a lot of people who just trade Bitcoin actively, so you kind of do have to keep it on the exchange. I would say if that's the case, then maybe, trade through like an ETF or something like that, like iBit. Miguel says, yes, I agree, just hold what you need to trade. Yeah, totally, I agree. There's always going to be like some counterparty risk there, right? And maybe it's just because I'm like an OG Bitcoin maximalist, you could say. But I even think if you really get it down to its core, if you purchase Bitcoin, right, on an exchange like, Kraken or Coinbase, Gemini, and you just hold your Bitcoin there, I think it kind of, violates one of Bitcoin's only value propositions, which is to be unconfiscatable money, right? I get that people want to speculate on it. They see it going up. They want to buy it, they want to get in on the alpha, I understand that. But if you really believe in its utility, you wouldn't be holding it on an exchange, right? It's kind of, the whole purpose of Bitcoin is a put option on the world. Like, in the event, currencies collapse, you have something that lives with outside the financial realm, so to kind of counterbalance fiat currency. But if you kind of leave that in the hands of someone else, then don't buy the actual Bitcoin, just buy the ETF, right? And pay the few basis points as the management fee. That's just my humble opinion on it. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but we'll see how this unfolds at Coinbase. Additionally, I think there was some news, I don't know how credible the news is, but allegedly in Coinbase's last earnings report, there's allegations that they fabricated some of their user numbers. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. That's just kind of a tweet or a post I saw on X. And as you and I both know, there's a lot of fake news on X, especially since Elon took over. Just being honest. I mean, I love Elon Musk, but the amount of just nonsense posts that I have to actively mute on X is just ridiculous at this point. Daniel Leonov, what's going on? This is not the only Bitcoin's value. It can also move past bank sanctions, and coming from someone from the most sanctioned country in the world, it has huge value. No, I mean, you're preaching to the choir, right? You're preaching to the choir. I get it. I think I meant one of Bitcoin's value propositions, right? Unconfiscatable money, right? In your term, or in your world, like God forbid you getting sanctioned or something, right? It's permissionless, right? So if I have, for example, $100 million at JP Morgan Chase, and I want to send a wire out to Russia or Ukraine, well, you're probably going to get a call saying, why are you sending this wire? What are you doing with it? It needs to get approval, or it could get denied, right? But with Bitcoin, there's no permission, right? Permissionless, unconfiscatable money. To your point, you could just send it halfway across the world, permissionless. So I totally get that. Totally get that and understand that. Alan says, I feel bad for you following me on X. It's a nonstop mix of finance and motorsports. I'm kind of getting into the motorsports, not gonna lie. I actually kind of enjoy that content. What I don't enjoy though, that's probably an issue on your side too, is all the bots. It feels like 90% of the users on X are just like these spam bots trying to, hack people's accounts or try to get people to wire money or impersonate people. I mean, Elon Musk and team really has to do a better job about that, not to be hypercritical, but I'm just being honest. I mean, it's almost unbearable, the amount of bots on X. It's like a dumpster fire there. It's insane. Uh, 666 says Coinbase employees leaked customer data to ransomware gangs. They're the worst exchange. Well, that's a problem. That's probably what happened, right? And essentially, you target the weakest link in the company. This is a classic like social engineering hack, right? So they probably went after like very low-level offshore customer service agents that are getting paid like $10 an hour, right? And paid them off, probably gave them $100,000 to disclose very, very high-profile accounts on Coinbase. It's classic social engineering. So, but yeah, you're right. You really, especially in today's day and age, and maybe this is a good topic just to briefly touch on. I think everybody could benefit from this. I would even go as far to say, and this is coming from somebody who sold a ton, okay? I have sold a ton of cybersecurity software in my career, in my previous career in tech. I mean, I would work with chief technology officers, like I would work with all the major cybersecurity companies, in partnership with Zscaler, Fortinet, Palo Alto Networks, designing these cybersecurity systems and these zero trust networks. It's gotten to the point where, especially the social engineering and the ematet attacks, right, which are like ransomware phishing emails and phishing text messages, they've gotten so bad that you can't click any links anymore in emails. Like, I would not recommend clicking any link that anybody sends you anymore via email, via direct message, or via text, especially not via text. Because a lot of these hackers have been getting so good that, they'll get 917 numbers, right? They'll get a burner T-Mobile phone. It'll look like it's coming from a legit person, and they'll say, hey, check your Con Edison account. Click this link. Or, hey, check, your Verizon auto payment didn't go through for this month. Click this link to, enter your username and password. The next thing you know, your whole phone account is compromised. So I would say in this day and age, do not click any links that are sent to you via text. It's too risky, don't do it. And here's another thing that I would recommend that people do that has to do with your cell phone. What a lot of these organized gangs, they're cyber gangs, what they do, the easiest line of penetration is through a mobile phone. And let me explain. So they'll call up Verizon, they'll call up AT&T or T-Mobile, whatever your phone provider is, right? they'll pretend to be you, and they'll say something like, hey, I have a new phone, I want to activate it, or hey, I have a new SIM card, I want you to swap my SIM card and reactivate my SIM card, right? And then they'll say, no, we need your password to do it, and then they just call the customer service agents 20 million times and they find the weak link that'll do it. Next thing you know, your phone is deactivated. They have your phone number on their phone because they swapped your SIM, and they can pretty much access any account you have, your brokerage accounts, your bank accounts, because you just click forgot password, they send you that text. Now the hacker has the text, they change all your passwords, they're in all your accounts. So there's an easy way to kind of prevent this from happening. I would just go to your cell phone account and put a notation on the account. And put the note that says, I do not consent to any changes on the account unless I am present in person and you scan my photo ID. Now this is going to be a little inconvenient, right? Because, God forbid you do need to make a change over the internet, you won't be able to. But just have them notate that on your account, that under any circumstance, you do not authorize changes to the account over the phone or over the internet. The only changes that will be made is if I'm physically present in the store and you scan my photo ID. Because I've seen horror stories. I used to work for a big telecom company, of people just getting drained, everything, because of these phishing and SIM swap scams. And now that we're in the age of, cybercrime and AI, it's only going to continue to happen more and more, unfortunately. Anyway, we're outside of the beautiful Empire State Building. If you guys are enjoying the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video. And click the subscribe button if you're new. WM says also use a 2FA, two-factor authentication app. Do not use text for 2FA. Agreed. Alan says I have SIM swap protection turned on my T-Mobile account. Very good. Yeah, it's crazy kind of what these hackers do and what they try to do. It's pretty insane. Alan says text messages are a hard no for links, but generally you can protect yourself with a DM. Yeah, it's just, some of these links look so legitimate. I almost fall for them sometimes, but I guess I'll ask the audience, are you guys seeing an increase at all in these phishing scams, like via email or via text? Because I get obliterated with text messages, posing as Con Edison, posing as Florida, Power and Light, my FPL bill, and it's all obviously Emotet that I recognize, and I just delete the text, but it's almost made my phone unusable. It's insane. JK says yes, and for toll bills, I've started to get those too. You're 100% right. They pose as Easy Pass, and they're like, pay your Easy Pass here, and it's a text, but it's a scam. That must be the newest scam that's going around, because I'm seeing a few of you in the chat post that. Like, that's the next one, right? They're like, oh, pay your Easy Pass here. Click the link on text. I literally just got that one 2 days ago. Bobby B says I've been getting a ton over the past 2 days. Scott in Clearwater, Florida says I've been getting a lot lately for sure. Pedro says I do, and I'm from Brazil. It's really sad, but if you think about it, we probably just had, let's say, 20 people, right, to be conservative, post in the chat here, right, live, that they've been getting a significant amount of those types of phishing texts or emails. Let's say you get, one a week. right? One a week is just a small sample of people who are watching this live broadcast. Take that and multiply it across the entire United States of America. Could you imagine if just 20% of Americans with a cell phone are receiving these phishing texts? Now do 2% on the 20%. Let's say if 2% on the 20% click the link and 1% of the 2% get their accounts compromised, these hackers are making hundreds of millions of dollars. Easily, right? These organized hacker gangs, if you could send out, 60,000 texts a day, I mean, they're making hundreds of millions of dollars from these scams. Tim says, Tom, I also get calls that I owe past due taxes as a recorded message. Robert Parker says the problem with that is that most legitimate companies will send out invoices. Daniel G says also 2FA, two-factor authentication works. Yeah, Kathleen says EasyPass text warning that your account will be deactivated due to lack of payment. At this point, even if they are legit, I'd rather just risk my account being deactivated, right? Because what's the alternative? If I click that link and then I rectify the situation, the upside is my EasyPass account doesn't get terminated. But the downside is if I click the link and it's actually not EasyPass, well, then I have massive fraud and, I'm probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in the hole and potential identity theft. So the risk-reward trade on there is just terrible. So I've just kind of resorted to not clicking anything. Let's cross to the south side here. Peter says, I don't live in a place where there's tolls, so I know EasyPass email or text is garbage. Yeah. Now, I know, getting back to the Coinbase thing, I was reading somebody's thread on X today in relation to what happened at Coinbase, and apparently they're using AI, like these AI voice people. I think Steph in the chat said she was dealing with one of these AI bots that were really, really good, and it honestly sounded like 98% a human. Now, companies are using them legitimately for good, but also the downside is hackers are using them too, right? So if they have all your information, all they do is they send you an automated call. It sounds like a real person and they have all your information. Next thing you know, they're talking you into changing your passwords and moving money around. It's crazy. Hey, Larry Adams, what's going on? Cheers. Daniel says, but the people who actually work for scammers sending those messages and getting on the phone with their victims are still getting peanuts, which is even more sad. Yeah, for sure. And most of them are offshore, to your point. Most of these organized hacker rings are not even stateside. They're not even in the United States. Kevin says, I don't answer my phone or answer text messages anymore. Neither do I. I mean, kind of in my line of work, I have to, but to your point, it's gotten to the point where if I don't recognize the number, I just send it to voicemail, and if they leave me a voicemail, I'll call them back. But if they don't leave me a voicemail, I won't call them back. Now, here's another one that maybe you guys haven't heard of, but oftentimes you'll get, let's say, like a text message, right? And it'll be from a number you don't recognize, and it just says, hey. It'll just text you, hey, right? And most people would reply to that, right? And say, I'm sorry, I don't recognize this number. Who is this? Don't reply to those. Okay, those are scam text. Essentially what they're doing is they're probing your phone number to see if you're a real person. So if you ever get a text message, of like, hey, or how are you, or long time no see, from a number you don't recognize, do not respond to it, because 9 times out of 10, it's just a hacker probing you and making sure that's a live number. Because when you do respond, you'll notice they won't respond, and then in the following days, 2 to 3 days later, you're gonna get lit up with calls, spam calls, telemarketing. It's called testing and probing the number. If they send you a text, because essentially what they do is they buy, let's say 100,000 phone numbers for like $2,000 off the internet. And they sit there all day, they probably have, a big Excel spreadsheet, and they spam text hi to 100,000 numbers. 60,000 of those numbers are gonna reply and just say, who's this? Oh, I think you have the wrong number. They're just checking to see if there's a live person on the other end. And then over the subsequent 10 to 15 days, they light you up. Like they throw everything they got at you. They throw phishing spam, texts from like 1,000 different numbers, spam calls. So that's another thing that's been going around that a lot of people don't know about. Has anybody ever gotten those before? I mean, I've been getting a ton of them over the past, 3 or 4 months. But let me know if anybody's ever gotten them. Yeah, Alan says I get random, what time are we meeting texts? Yeah, those are the probing text messages, right? Because if you're not really thinking about it and you get this text message, hey, what time are we meeting again? You're like, oh shit, did I tell somebody I was gonna meet? And you respond to that and you say, I'm sorry, I think you may have the wrong number. I wasn't supposed to meet anybody. And then they just ghost you, and then they know you're a live number, so they're gonna light you up.
There's a ton left. Yeah.
Six I get about once per month. Let's go down to Washington Square Park. Oh, maybe not Washington Square Park, maybe Madison. Well, I think it's an important topic. This is kind of like a cybersecurity 101 class, I guess. Definitely relevant. It's also why I'm bullish on the cybersecurity sector as a whole. Michael Rodriguez says, Tom, is there a hotel that you recommend that's not that pricey? Well, I always recommend that Kipton Theta Hotel which is on 8th Avenue. It's newer, the rooms are pretty big. It recently underwent renovation during the pandemic, and I think it's pretty fair, right? Even though it's on 8th Avenue, it's quite nice. So I'd recommend that one. It's usually like, you know, mid 200s a night, close to Restaurant Row. The thing in New York is there's a lot of hotels that are nice, but that are old. Like even some of the big name branded hotels that everybody stays at, they're just dated. Like I would even say the kind of the Plaza Hotel is a little bit dated on the inside. So try to look to stay at the newer ones. The room sizes tend to be a little bit bigger. That one's pretty good. Doug Thompson's is the Jane Hotel in the West Village near 14th Street. It was under renovation when I stayed there last year. I'll have to check it out. Emma says, is there any good security out there for computers? Well, I mean, if it's just like personal devices, I would just try to manage something that can protect like a cell phone, a computer, like any of your endpoints, right? It's called like an endpoint cybersecurity software, or like an MDM. CrowdStrike is pretty good, but there's also this company called CodeProof. I don't even know if it's still around. It may have gotten acquired, but in full disclosure, I was good friends with the CEO, Satish. But CodeProof is very, very affordable, and I think the licenses are like $250 a month or something. So if you have like 10 devices in the house, it's pretty affordable, and that'll cover your computer, you know, your phone. So, you know, God forbid you lose your phone on the subway, right? And somebody has your phone, you could just go home, go into your portal, and just remotely wipe the device, or remotely brick the device, essentially, right? So I would say any affordable MDM. Oops, hold on 1 second. Hey, Pineapple Water, what's up? Good to see you. This thing kind of stinks. This building kind of sucks. It's blocking the Empire State Building. But imagine having an apartment in this new building. You're literally going to have a front row view at the Empire. Anyway. Hey, type username. Yeah, of course. 100%. You know, let's go inside Madison Square Park. We haven't been inside here in a while. Usually when I walk into Central Park, especially in the summer, you could feel the temperature difference. It's like a 5 to 10 degree temperature difference. Hey, Brad's Brain, what's going on? We were just talking about the cybersecurity breach at Coinbase, and we were briefly discussing the United Healthcare debacle that's going on. I don't think we talked about Walmart's earnings yet, did we? I forget. We talked about a lot so far. Usually the first hour of the stream is the most packed with information, but I thought Walmart had a pretty good quarter, but management did allude to the fact that there's probably going to be some price hikes. Towards the back end of the quarter. Hey, Kendall says, what is your perspective on Trump's visit to the Middle East? Yeah, we talked about that 2 streams ago, but yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really, really great from a market's perspective. From a political perspective, I try to stay away from that conversation because it tends to get people all riled up. But I think it's strategic on both angles, right? You want to have stability in the Middle East. And my take on the geopolitical environment overall, and I've said this before, which kind of actually conflicts with what the current administration is trying to do in some regard. But I actually believe globalization over the last 12 years, right, has really, really accelerated, as we all know. And I think that's one of the things that's keeping relative amounts of world peace, because all of our economies are so intertwined and interdependent on one another, if you think about it, right? And this was even more prevalent during the pandemic, which really showed itself, right? The world, not just the United States, was so heavily reliant on China for supply chain, for semiconductors, that when the world shut off because of China shutting down, everybody was like, oh my gosh, we are so dependent on China, right? I mean, I was in the tech sector at the time, and you had semiconductor shortages for 3 years. So after that, you've started to see a lot of diversification to other parts of Asia, right? A large portion of that manufacturing capacity went to India. A large portion of that went to Vietnam. Even a little bit went to Thailand and South Korea. So if you are being honest, a lot of the hot problems in the world right now are coming out of the Middle East. Right, I don't have all the answers to it. I don't, want to get into the politics of it all. But economic prosperity, in my humble opinion, breeds stability. It just does. When you have people that feel like they have a future, when you have a populace that, like we have here in the United States and in the Western world, like you wake up every day and you're optimistic for the most part that you're going to go to school, you're going to get a good education, you're going to get a good job, you'll buy a house, right? That kind of keeps the populace from like slaughtering each other, right? I mean, I know it's like a little bit graphic, but for the most part, that's true, right? When you have civilized society with economic prosperity and more specifically economic mobility, right? I think that's the reframe, right? When you have economic mobility in a society, it keeps peace. Poverty and the opposite of economic prosperity breeds instability. And there's a lot of instability in the Middle East. So having these partnerships, right, and I get it. Like, trust me, I get the horrible politics of it all. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, we could have a 1,000-hour conversation about terrorism. I get it. Trust me, I get it. Okay, I get it. But the point I'm trying to make is sometimes you got to keep, I don't really want to say your enemies closer. You got to make friends, and you got to bring economic prosperity everywhere. And I think that'll probably dampen and quiet a lot of the craziness that's going on throughout the region. So I just want to make sure I'm putting it in the appropriate context, because I'm not downplaying any of the horrible atrocities that any of those countries have done. It's not what I'm doing. And the reason why I'm kind of being super hypersensitive around the topic is because it is a hypersensitive topic, right, politically, and I get it. Especially with everything that's going on in the Middle East now, particularly the massive war we have going on, Israel-Palestine. But that's kind of my take on it. And it's more of a psychological play, and I think if you include people, bringing economic prosperity, the large portion of the populace is probably not going to say, oh yeah, I want to do radical terrorism. If you have nothing better to do all day, if you have no job, you have no nothing, what are you going to get influenced by? So I think it's very, very good. I mean, what do you guys think? Brad's brains is 100%. The solution in many, many ways is dependent on societies with opportunity and jobs. That's kind of how I'm looking at the situation. Marx is a wide variety of different topics this evening. It's been a great stream. Yeah, we've been all over the place tonight, which is kind of hilarious. Now, okay, here's another thing I'll say about the whole Middle East thing. You know what? Let's go to 14th Street. We haven't been to Union Square in a while. Might as well. Now think about the dynamics here. Okay, who are the two biggest economies on Earth? Right. That's kind of a layup question. Speaking of cybersecurity, this is Okta. This is a how am I blanking on the name of the specific cybersecurity? IAM Cybersecurity, this company. IAM. I'm kind of like a squirrel. I get distracted too much. In any event, if you think about the two largest economies on Earth, it's the United States and it's China. And that is really the main trade war here. Or as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called it, we pretty much had an embargo on China, right? We're just being, if we're being honest, anything over 100% tariffs, that's pretty much an embargo. You can't do business. So the goal with those tariffs, right? And I've been through this before. Trump never wanted to put tariffs on other countries or on China and keep them there. That was all BS, right? Trump is a deal guy. Trump likes to get deals done. The way he pitched it during the campaign, I think, was a little bit disingenuous, but he did it in a way to get elected. That's what politicians do, they lie. He said, we're going to throw tariffs on everybody and we're going to take in billions and billions and billions and zillions. You know how Trump is, right? Very flamboyant. The tariffs were never, ever, ever meant to stay on and take in billions and zillions. It was to put a big shock, a massive shakeup to get people back to the table in hopes of a chance. Okay, that's the key. In hopes of a chance of a better deal. So with that context, bringing it full circle back to the Middle East, if you slap, okay, blanket tariffs on everybody, countries all over the world are going to be scrambling and looking to other countries to do deals to have interdependence on. So if you're simultaneously negotiating a trade deal with China, right, and you think about, the main thematic investments over the next 10 years, it's AI, it's data center, cloud computing, autonomous driving, and most importantly that we don't really talk about, it's energy, right? Because if you're going to have AI, you're going to need energy, and who has energy, right? Probably the biggest company on earth, Saudi Aramco, right? So if you're the United States, if you're the Trump administration, and you are trying to negotiate a trade deal with China, the best play would be get extremely, extremely close and build partnerships in the Middle East where there is a haven of energy and wealth. And I get all the other stuff, guys, I get it, okay? The Qatar, funneling terrorism all over the world, I get it. But as a strategic play economically, maybe you kind of kill two birds with one stone. Would you rather have China, making all those strategic partnerships with AI and, all the biggest oil companies in the world in the Middle East? Or would you rather have it be the United States of America? That's the big picture, how I think about it. Now, is it going to work out? I think so, but it's not a guarantee. But that's kind of the way, at least that I see the Trump administration dealing here. It's try to get China to the table, right? Obviously, China is run by communists, the CCP, so they can actually tolerate a lot more pain than what we can, right? Because I'm trying to kind of skate on thin ice. We generally care about our economy and our people more. I truly believe that the CCP is willing to sacrifice a lot to kind of prove a point. So by doing the whole dog and pony show, song and dance in the Middle East and in Saudi Arabia, right, where there's horses everywhere and Trump's getting paraded around like he's the king, it's all for show, to kind of a show of force to China to say, look, come to the table because we are going to sweep the most strategic places on earth, where the vast majority of the engine to drive this whole thing, right, AI, cloud computing, autonomous vehicles, is going to come from. And again, that's just my take. Doesn't mean I'm right. Hey, CP, what's up? Good to see you. Bob Smith is joining us. Cheers. We're now at 14th Street, Union Square. Wow, Eaton says I'm moving to New York City tomorrow. Well, welcome. It's the best city on earth. Perfect time to move to New York City, by the way. It's almost summer. Hey, John, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. In any event, this is why I also think, and I guess we'll kind of touch on a little bit of the politics of it, but, Trump always says he wants to get the manufacturing jobs back. And I'm kind of in the camp with Ken Griffin, where it's like they're not going to come back. Like we've kind of moved. If you do a post-analysis on how economies grow, from an emerging market to, I would say, first world where we are today, it's you export all of your low skill, low wage manufacturing capacity to the emerging world. And it may sound terrible, right? But that's just how it's happened for forever, right? As an economy transitions, right, and kind of moves up that rank and evolves, you export your low level, low wage jobs overseas. And that's why the United States is such a big services-based economy, right? We are essentially a software-based, services-based economy. We don't really manufacture little trinkets. So I don't know why, in the first place, Trump would want to bring back those type of jobs, like $10 an hour jobs. It's just the economics of it just doesn't work here. Now, what I do agree with is bringing back advanced manufacturing, right? advanced manufacturing jobs like, semiconductor fabrication, advanced chip making factories that require, advanced engineering degrees and things like that. But you're not going to get those type of jobs back in the US, like manufacturing like blankets and things. It's just not going to happen. So like the whole thing is not even like worth it, which is kind of confusing me. It's either, Trump is ignorant in that regard, which is believable, right? Or he's just doing it to make a concession for all of the high skill, I would say high asset manufacturing. Because if you look at, just like you could trade a stock on an open exchange, right? Think about employment, think about people like me and you and everybody walking down the street right now as a stock, right? You essentially what labor is, you're purchasing people, right? And what is your rate? And it may sound harsh to say it, but the American worker, right? People in the Western world, Canada, right? Are more valuable in terms of what they're willing to work for. And that has been built over 100 years, right? So it's those jobs, like if a little trinket factory opens here, you're not going to be able to pay somebody $10 an hour. It's just not going to happen here logistically. It's just impossible. The economics of it is going to be impossible. But it works in Vietnam, it works in Thailand. That's kind of what I don't, like if there's people that really believe that the Trump administration is going to bring back those type of jobs, it's just not going to happen. It's just not even a real conversation. I agree with all the semiconductor stuff, right? Bring back the manufacturing of that, but it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for anything else. I mean, am I wrong? Am I off base there? Tux Brown says that's why all those businesses left. And I also believe we have to have an honest conversation about, do we want those jobs here, right? Unfortunately, and if we just want to be, blunt and say what it is, in West Virginia, the main job used to be coal miner, right? And since coal mines have been closing down, it's wreaked economic havoc on that region. But do we really want those type of jobs back? Like, I don't know. I mean, people were getting, working in extremely, extremely dangerous conditions, getting black lung. Like, do we want those type of jobs back? It's like, there kind of has to be a give and take. It's like economies evolve. Is there collateral damage through the evolution of an economy? Unfortunately, yes. I don't know the answer to it, and I think we're going to have to deal with this again. And I'm trying not to come off as insensitive because I do have empathy, right? If you lost your job, your family has worked generations in the coal mine. I get it. It sucks, but it's like, we can have alternatives. That's a very dangerous situation. And I think what's going to happen now, like looking into the future, a lot of these warehouse jobs are going to go the same exact way, right? Maybe, you're working at an Amazon fulfillment warehouse, right? You're making $15 to $20 an hour, pick, packing, and shipping boxes. Andy Jassy has all the different metrics on you if you're not putting things in the box fast enough. And, those are very laborious, mundane jobs that I believe over the next 5 to 10 years are going to be fully automated away. On the last earnings call, Andy Jassy said that they're investing billions of dollars into ghost fulfillment centers. I think that's probably a good thing, right? If we look back on this moment in 30 years, do you think people really like doing that type of work? I mean, maybe some people like it, but if that back-breaking work can be outsourced to a robot, right? And again, I'm showing empathy to it, but it's like if you're working in a factory all day, you're on your feet for 10 hours, right? You hear these crazy stories about how, the working conditions at some of these Amazon factories, and if you're an Amazon delivery driver, like you have to take a piss in a bottle because they don't even let you take a break for 15 minutes. Like, do we want that happening to people? I don't. So if we can have a robot do that, I would much rather have a robot do that, outsource it to the robots, outsource it to automation, and then try to retool and reskill these people to do something else. I think that's going to be the biggest blow with humanoid robots, automation, and AI, is to kind of that sector. What I think the government's duty and obligation is to kind of counterbalance that or counteract that is maybe with all the productivity gains that we get from it, all the increased tax revenue, maybe we come up with some sort of program where we provide, on-the-job training that's subsidized, maybe by the government, but do it in a non-wasteful way, right? Send people who've unfortunately been displaced by the automation to these trade schools where they can, learn and reskill for a new economy so people don't get left behind. I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like, but perhaps it'll be something similar. This is now Wanamaker Place. East 9th Street, really. Right by the Wegmans. But if you guys are enjoying the stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video. And click the subscribe button if you're new. Soul Alchemy. I saw a video from China where a robot actually fought back against the person. I think I saw that too. I don't know if it was real or not. Hustler Inc. says fast food places will become automated too. Bob Smith says I agree on outsourcing to robots. Bobby B says people need meaning, and a shitty job is something more meaningful than no job / universal basic income. I definitely agree. I'm not saying just, UBI hand out money to people like, kind of like the stimulus checks during the pandemic. What I'm saying is maybe, with all of that, all those productivity gains, I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll be something like what Elon Musk said, right, during the Saudi Arabia U.S. Investment Summit. Essentially, and if you haven't watched it, you got to watch Elon Musk's interview at that summit. His worldview for humanoid robots is that there's going to come a point in time where everybody's going to have their own personal humanoid robot, similar to how everybody has a smartphone today, right? Everybody who's watching this probably walks around with a smartphone. Elon believes that there will come a time where everybody will have their humanoid robot to do things for them, to work for them and such, where things will become so abundant, right? You'll have so much abundance in life where you won't have universal basic income, you'll have something called universal high income. Because, there's a strong correlation to population growth, wage growth, and economic growth. And if these humanoid robots essentially act as a human, they could do things, they could work, what does that do to global GDP? Right? It might very well double it. So, maybe we just live in an age of abundance. You never know. Now, things like that kind of sound crazy, right? It sounds crazy to think there's no way that everybody walking down the street right now, including me, if we were just doing this live stream 50 years from now, everybody would have a humanoid robot next to them. That sounds like so stupid and so crazy, but I don't want to be a Matt Lauer, right? And I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. Does anybody remember the interview? I think it was Matt Lauer. I think Matt Lauer was the guy on the Today Show. Or was he Good Morning America? I forget. Anyway, doesn't matter. But when the iPhone just came out, he was like bashing the iPhone. He's like, there's no way everybody's going to be walking around with this. He's like, I have a printer at home. You know, if I want to send somebody, he's like, email. What do I have to do email for? I could just send somebody, you know, a letter. And he was like really bashing the iPhone. And he was saying, there's no way that everybody's going to be walking around with this. And now fast forward, you know, just 15 years, and everybody is walking around with an iPhone, right? Or a smartphone of some sorts. Everybody. And it seems so crazy when it first came out. So I don't want to be a Matt Lauer in that regard, to say, no, it's never going to happen. I'm not going to lean into the innovation. I think it's ridiculous. And then you miss the whole move, right? What I want to do is lean into that innovation and invest aggressively into it based on prior trends. Because let's say Elon Musk is right? And you're aggressively investing in these technologies now. I mean, that's like buying, you know, that's like buying Microsoft in 1995, right? And holding it until now. You know, you're probably feeling well. So the last thing you want to do is have hesitancy and resist the innovation, because if you use history as your guide, you're almost 100% going to be left behind and have nothing. Whether you like it or not, we live in a capitalistic society, and if you don't participate in that, you will get nothing, and you will have nothing, right? Regardless of if you agree with the system or not, capitalism is all about participation, and if you participate, you will get rewarded. You will play in the system, and you will reap the rewards. If you choose not to participate, well, you're going to fall to the lower rungs of society. That's just the truth. That's how it works out. You have to invest in this stuff. So we'll see. Man, I haven't walked down St. Mark's Place at night probably over a year, maybe 2 years. It seems pretty busy too. I mean, and it's a Thursday night. Imagine what this place is going to be like Friday night, Saturday. We're now in the East Village, everybody. This is 2nd Avenue and St. Mark's Place. Hey, Kendo NYC, thank you very much for your generous $20 donation. I appreciate you very much, and thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for your generosity. I'm glad you're enjoying it. CP says you will have robots installed into vacant rooms to show off everything. Hey, Nick is here, says where have you been? I kept tuning in and haven't seen your walks. I mean, we've been back for like, I think a couple weeks, maybe? I think we've been back for like 2 weeks now. I don't even know, but I have been gone for about a month. And I may be gone for another month in 2 months. So I'll have to figure out something. I'm figuring out a temporary alternative for the nightly streams. I'm probably going to spin up like a second channel, because if I'm traveling abroad for extended periods of time, I'll probably just put out standalone videos about like market commentary. Hey, out and about, what's up? This is my favorite pizza place in St. Mark's, is Ray's Pizza and Bagel. Oh, Ray's is on the corner there, right, by Esther Place? That's not a bad spot. There's a better spot the further you go into Soho, Prince Street. Fantastic. I don't know if you heard about this out and about, but in Miami, Florida, right on the corner of Collins Avenue and Lincoln Road, adjacent to where you have that new Raising Cane's, they're opening a Prince Street Pizza location. So not only in Miami and Wynwood are you going to have, you have, not Ray's, Joe's. You got Joe's in Wynwood. Then you're going to have Prince Street in South Beach. Kind of crazy. Hi, Padilla. What's going on? Good to see you. The line for Prince Street Pizza tonight's probably ridiculous.
Yeah. But he seems fine.
You know, I've noticed a lot of these older townhomes are getting marketed off market to developers. DC 322 says if you're a New Jersey Transit commuter, you're maybe out of luck tomorrow morning. Yeah, what's going on with that? I saw something on X this morning. Apparently there's going to be a big strike on New Jersey Transit. That sucks. Bob says, does your wealthier clients pay cash and wire transfer? For condos in New York City, any major differences in closing procedures with $4 million property versus $400,000? No, not really a major difference. I mean, the transaction takes significantly less time. Let's just say that. But it's pretty much the exact same. It's strange. I've noticed the correlation between the more expensive deals or the more expensive properties that we work on and the easier the transaction. And I know that people probably wouldn't like me to say that, but I've actually found that to be the case. Maybe it's just because you're dealing with people that are qualified. I'm not saying if you're buying a $400,000 place, you're not qualified, but you know, if you're dealing at like 10 million plus, you're probably, the person who's on the other side of the table, who's going to purchase that $10 million plus property, probably has some sort of acumen where they've done this before and they kind of know the drill. And, even at like the $4 million range, the vast majority of it is cash. And yeah, just initiate the wire. And the attorneys really just take care of everything. But it's a very strange market, right? Because a lot of the transactions that are being done in this market are cash transactions, mainly because the cost of money is expensive right now, right? That's really all interest rates are. Interest rates are the price that you pay for money, right? That's the best way to think about it. This is East Village Books. I got one of the original copies of Reminiscences of a Stock Operator in this little bookstore right here. So the cost of money being high does a few things, right? It prices a lot of people out of the market that would need financing, because that $400,000 home or $2 million home, if you could put 20% down and you leverage out the rest, well, 7% money at those kind of numbers is a lot of interest over the course of the loan. And your monthly payments really balloon. So it kind of turns the deals upside down. So in that environment, really the only people getting deals done for the most part, right? There are obviously financing deals, are people with that could just pay all cash. Definitely feels like a Friday night here, doesn't it? This is Tompkins Square Park. Yeah, Tammy, I realized once I started streaming, I misspelled Thursday. Typo. I was in the elevator and it was like 9 o'clock and I'm like, oh, I am very late. So I just did it on my phone quickly and threw it up. Or maybe that's just my dyslexia. You never know. Yeah, Hustler Inc. says it's almost summer, so it's going to feel like Friday every night. Well, this is one of the only nights this week where it's like livable outside. Every other night has been ridiculous with rain. It's been like pounding rain every day. Hey, what's up, Chuck? Yeah, there's a lot of different speakeasies down here. This is a really fun area. Tompkins Square Bagels is somewhere around here. I think it's the next block. I think it's in between East 9th Street and East 10th Street. That's crazy they have a Ralph's Italian Ice down here. Danny Cooper's cheese steaks. Jackass is Tom, when you move apartments in New York City, do you pay movers or do you have your friends? I've always had my friends do it, or I've just done it myself. Honestly, just up until a few years ago, I've lived pretty much like an extreme minimalistic life. So I don't really have many possessions. So there's really nothing to move. Most of my stuff is in my house in Miami. And then I bring it back. I brought my library back. We just passed the Tompkins Square Bagels. I mean, moving is expensive if you pay a moving company. This building's actually a new development. You would never know it looking at all the graffiti and all the shit all over it, but this is a very nice new development. This is now East 12th and Avenue A. Hey, gymless fitness. This is Tom, are you bullish on marriage or not really? I guess it depends on who you marry. But yeah, I'm bullish, yeah, for sure. I think that's probably the most important trade you'll ever make in your life. That's kind of one you really need to get right, is who you marry. Because that'll either set your life up good or not so good.
Like the next interview is straight up.
This is now East 13th Street. Daniel Perez, good to see you as always. I really like this area. We honestly never come down here just because in the winter it's just too cold, but in the summer it's great. This is one of my favorite areas in New York City, to be honest. Especially just to people watch. Yeah, Brad's brain says great point, Tom. She needs to have good EPS and good guidance, for sure. The forward guidance is probably the number one thing to look for in the marriage. I think if your guidance is both in concurrence, that's probably an indication of a good trade. All right, 14th Street. We're gonna make a left here. We'll head back towards Civilization. This is the new L train. Well, I should say the remodeled.
It's a par 3.
There's always that one lone grocery shopping cart. Wingstop. I used to own this stock, a lot of this. Now, I think the biggest thing for tomorrow, which we already talked about, is Galaxy Digital is going to be listing on NASDAQ, which is Mike Novogratz company. I think that's probably the most important thing to look for tomorrow. And I think Bitcoin, as of doing this, is probably hovering right around 104,000. So maybe we'll break out to the upside over the weekend, hopefully into new all-time record high territory. Maybe we'll walk up First Avenue. Music to unwind and relax. Thank you so much. cruises were at 104,000. You know, I think we might break out over the weekend. You usually get those big breakouts in price action on Bitcoin over the weekend. I think this thing sends it over the top. We'll see. I mean, it's looking good. Yeah, I know. That siren was unusually loud. That was a little bit of a heroin den. I think it's starting to rain too. I don't know if this is like human excrement or what. This area got a lot rougher than what I remember. Fun feeds, Zuckerberg is number 2 on the Forbes list. Well, Meta just announced that they're postponing the launch of their AI. So maybe there'll be a big shakeup in the engineering department at Meta. I think it's going to start absolutely pouring. So we'll make our way towards 42nd Street. Man, we're already over 2 hours. Holy crap. Cruises, you think the Meta glasses down the line will be the coolest product line ever? Maybe. I mean, Zuckerberg really hammers on that thing. It'd be cool if you could stream from them, if you could just do like a 1080p stream with the Meta glasses. That'd be pretty cool. Can they shoot in 4K? I don't know. Yeah, Matthew, I heard that. Airbnb's moving into a bunch of different stuff. I think Brian Chesky's calling it Airbnb Services, something to that like. I mean, I don't own the stock. I mean, Airbnb is one of those stocks that have been really, really stuck in the mud. But we'll see. Maybe this will be a new revenue stream for them. Who knows? They're kind of like making it a Craigslist almost, like an Airbnb Craigslist type thing. East 19th Street. Really got to pick up the pace because I think it's going to start to downpour any minute. I'm gonna take it easy. Thanks so much for joining. If you guys have enjoyed the live stream so far tonight, leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new. We usually do these every night, starting at 8:45. This is East 20th and 1st Avenue. Yeah, Seuss is no rain until you get home. It's raining a little bit, but it's just a misty rain right now. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, I don't know that.
This is the D'Agostino grocery store. Hey, what's up, Mohammed? "21st Street now. I'll keep you guys on for the ride. If you want to stay, you can, but I'm just going to walk back to 42nd. East 23rd Street. Maybe we'll cut across. Hey, what's up, Ignacio? Good to see you. right, this is 23rd and 2nd. Hey, NMB 45, good to see you. We were pretty much ended, but I'll take you guys back to 42nd. As it just starts raining a little bit. We're actually going to come up to a building I sold right on the corner here of Lexington Avenue and 23rd Street. Ooh, this is the Neftali Group, the Willow. This is going to be a really nice development right here. The Neftali Group always does really good work. This is going to be 23rd Street and 3rd Avenue. A lot of those arched window ways are making a pretty big comeback in New York. Looks like they're going to be 10-foot plus windows too. This is the building right on the right. Gramercy North. Looks like everybody's home too. So Gramercy North has 14 units in the building, and each apartment has its own individual floor. So your elevator opens right up into your own apartment. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It's almost like a railroad style apartment. It's right here. Pretty good location too. I think there's 2 resales on the market right now. One for $2,495 and I think one for $2,795. Yeah, Chloe says, I think we went inside on one of the streams. It's a pretty unique building. marks as I'm headed back to the office. Now I'm probably gonna head home now. It's really late. I was actually supposed to head home earlier, but I totally lost track of time. Oh, this is Gramercy Theater. Man, it's packed tonight. We're going to pass the old Credit Suisse. Anyone know what time it is? Probably 11:30, right? Uh, 11:21. Got it. This is now Park Avenue South. This is the old Credit Suisse, which is now UBS. That's when the whole Archegos craziness happened.
I do think it's a beautiful spot.
With Bill Hwang, who is a Tiger Cub, but he's going to prison, I think, for 25 plus years. East 26th Street. You know, it seems like the rain is held off pretty much. What time is it now? Must be like 11:40 maybe? 11:11, something like that. Ah, 11:26.
Make myself up.
Hey, what's up, Western Mass Dave? Yeah, we pretty much ended the stream, but I thought I'd take everybody along for the ride if you'd like. Right, we made it to 34th Street. You know, let's see if we can see the Empire State Building. Let's see if it's not too cloudy. Can't really see the spire.
And like,
Hey, Jamie Pope. Hopefully you're doing well. Tomorrow, Galaxy Digital is listing on the NASDAQ. It's Mike Novograt's firm. I think that's one to watch for tomorrow. What's up, Diane? This is pretty much the after hours show. After 2 hours, if we're on, I kind of just walk back to where I need to go. Con I am. Thanks for joining. Diane says, how's business? Thank God it's been really good, especially on the markets front. Hope business is going well for you. There's some really beautiful townhouses all to the right of us. Del Mar says looks pretty hazy out. Well, I mean, all week has been terrible. I mean, it's been downpouring rain pretty much all week. And it just stopped, I want to say maybe 7 o'clock. It really stopped in New York. Ben Yorks will be streaming in Miami next week. We should. Yeah, next week I'm going to be in South Florida, so. Thank you very much, Dude Abides. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. I know, Dave, it's been a really rainy spring. The problem, though, it's just been so cloudy. Even when it's not raining, it's just been like crazy clouds. I don't even remember the last time I saw the sun. It's been like maybe 4 days, but it feels like an eternity. All right, everybody, I think I'll kill it now. Thanks for joining. And we will see you all tomorrow. Take care.